Pleasant day, everyone. Welcome to our group reporting session dedicated to the vibrant world of music. Our agenda for today is designed to cover a range of topics in music. They are the main properties of music, music mediums, elements of music, ensembles of music, history of music, and kinds of music. Introduction. In order to create a harmonic and frequently emotionally evocative composition, the musicians arrange, organize, manage sounds that have diverse pitches, tones, and rhythms. To communicate concepts, feelings, and emotions, it uses broad variety of elements including melody, harmony, rhythm, and dynamics. Through the deliberate manipulation of sounds and rhythms, music is a complex and adaptable art form that allows the expression of a vast range of human experiences, thoughts, and emotions. And sound is an energy in the form of vibrations, and it can go through solids, water, and air. Yeah. Any action that causes an object to move quickly back and forth, such as striking it or plucking a string, is the source of these vibrations. By passing these vibrations across a medium, sound is created. This stimulates the sensory receptors in our ears, which translates the vibrations into sound so that humans can hear and understand it. Next is the four main properties of musical sound. First is pitch. In terms of sound, pitch is how we perceive its frequency and categorize it as high or low. It is this quality that enables us to discriminate between different sounds according to how high or low they are in relation to one another. High frequency vibration uses quick compressions and rarefactions in the medium that conduct sound waves. A higher pitch sound is produced by a high frequency sound wave that is created by these quick vibrations. On the other hand, slower vibrations produce a lower frequency sound wave which result in a lower pitch sound. Next is dynamics. The term dynamics in music describes the shifts in loudness or softness of a musical piece as well as changes in intensity or volume. It's about how a piece of music sound varies in volume over time. The amplitude of the vibrations that cause a sound to be produced does in fact affect how loud it is. A louder sound is produced by an item vibrating with a larger amplitude, and a softer sound by vibrations with a lesser amplitude. Italian words and acronyms are used by composers in musical notation to denote different dynamics that musicians play. This notation provides artists with guidance on how loudly or softly to play a specific musical portion. They are pianissimo, PP or very soft, piano, P or soft, mezzo piano, MP moderately soft, mezzo forte, MF moderately loud, forte, F loud, and fortissimo, FF means very loud.
Tone color or timbre. The quality of sound that distinguishes them is called the tone color or timbre. Changes in tone color creates a contrast. Tone color is also built a sense of continuity. It can also be changed by varying the number of instruments or voices that perform a melody. In music, timbre, also known as tone color or tone quality, is the perceived sound quality of a musical note, sounds, or tone. Timbre distinguishes different types of sound production, such as choir voices and musical instruments. It also enables listeners to distinguish different instruments in the same category. Duration. Duration depends on the length of time over which vibration is maintained. Tones are not only high or low, but also short or long. In music, duration is an amount of time or how long or short a note, phrase, section, or composition lasts. Duration in the length of time a pitch or tone is sounded. A note may last less than a second, while a symphony may last more than an hour.
So now let's proceed to the mediums in music. So there are two types of mediums in music. The first one is the vocal medium. The second is the musical instruments. The vocal medium is the song projected by human voice and is the most natural form of music. In singing, we use a wider range of pitch and volume. It requires a greater supply and control of breath. So in a vocal medium, this is completely generated by our voice without any kind of help of external musical instruments and other equipments, and the outcomes of the vocal music is completely dependent on the type of the voice of the singer. So the range of the voice depends on the training and on physical makeup. You know, in men's, vocal cords are longer and larger than women's, and this difference produces a lower range of pitches. So here we can see the classifications of voice ranges for women and men. So for the women, first one is the soprano, which is the highest. The second is mezzo soprano, the medium, and alto or contralto is the lowest. While men, we have the tenor, the highest, the baritone in medium, and last, bass for the lowest. So next is the musical instruments. Instrument is any mechanism other than the voice that produces a musical sounds. Instruments provide entertainment and accompany singing, dancing, religious rites, and drama. You know, instrumental music is completely generated by the musical instruments without any kind of help of human vocals. The outcomes of this kind of music is completely dependent on the type of instrument used for the music generation. Instruments also have been used for communication. Also, instruments produces tones more rapidly than the voice. So we have three main types of musical instruments. First one is instruments that are bowed or the string instrument. Just example, guitar, violin. Second is instruments that are blown or the woodwinds and bass instrument. These are the flute and the trumpet. And third, instruments that are struck or the percussion instrument. These are the drum, cymbals, and tambourine. Yeah. To have a better understanding, the vocal medium is nothing but the song or something which we sing by ourselves with the help of our throat, while the musical instruments is nothing but the sound produced by some instrument, just like the guitar, the violin, the flute, the tambourine, and etc. that would be discussed further by my grouping.
We have different types of instrument. First, we have the string family. String family are the instrument with, obviously, with strings, where you can strum or pluck it, and it will make a different sounds. Just like harp, it have a lot of strings, and one of it is different than the others. Violin, harp, double bass, viola, cello. This type of instruments usually sing in the theater or in operas. In the string family, we also have acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and banjo, and so on. The second type of instrument is the woodwind family. Woodwind family is the type of instrument that you must blow to make a sound. It also has keys and notes, just like the others: bassoon, flute, oboe, English horn, clarinet, and piccolo. Next.
Good morning everyone, my name is ELEC111 and today we're going to discuss an interesting topic where we're going to learn a lot about the brass family. So basically the first question that we have in our mind, what is a brass family? Brass family includes instruments that are predominantly constructed of brass, of course, and make sound by vibrating the player's lips against a metal mouthpiece. So please take note of that. Brass instruments that are commonly used are trumpets, trombones, French horn, and tubas. To play these instruments, musicians should do buzzes of their lips on the mouthpiece so that it causes vibration and that will travel through the tubing of the instrument. So, number two question is how do we use this instrument? Of course, so proper use necessitates mastery of techniques such as embouchure, or also known as control of the lips and face muscle, breath support, and finger coordination. From the brilliant and piercing tones of trumpets to the gentle and rich sound of the French horn, different brass instruments plays different role in an ensemble. Understanding each instrument's intricacies enables for creative and harmonic musical performance. So that's how amazing the brass family, right? So I'm also going to add some important takeaways about the brass family. Brass and percussion instruments are important parts of the orchestra and other musical ensemble brass instruments, such as trumpets and trombones, generate music by vibrating the leaves against a metal mouthpiece, like I've said earlier, right? So they give the music a bright and forceful quality. Percussion instruments such as drums and cymbals, on the other hand, they add rhythm and dynamic energy. These family instruments entails delving into their distinct timbres, roles in many genres, and the professional player who mastered them, in order to provide a thorough grasp of their impact on the world of music. So thank you so much guys for listening, and I hope that you actually learned a lot from the brass family. So have a good day.
Let us move on to the elements of music. Music has four essential elements with which the composer works in a very much similar way with other artists work with their materials. And what are these elements? First is rhythm. Rhythm is basic to life. It is a regular pattern of changes. For example, changes in your body, in the seasons, or even in the tides. It is a form of lifeblood of music too in its widest sense. Rhythm is the ordered flow of music through time. Yet there is an essential difference between music and life. Composers, for example, can control the passage of time in music but not in life, for such order eludes us. Just as rhythm persuades our lives, so we find it everywhere in music, in pitch, tone color, and value. How these elements change in time and their rate of change have to do with rhythm. And underneath here are some important aspects in rhythm. First is meter. Meter means measure and refers to the number of beats in a rhythmic unit or measure. Rhythm basically describes the motion of the music. Where meter describes how many beats and which beats to stress, rhythm is the value of the notes in the passage and how the value relate to the meter. And next is the tempo. Tempo, on the other hand, refers to the speed. It is the speed of the beat, whether the music moves fast or slowly. Musicians erroneously use the word time to refer to all of these terms. Now to the next element, the melody. Melody is next in importance to rhythm. While rhythm is associated in the imagination with physical emotion, melody is associated with mental motion. It is sometimes called the memory element because it is what the listeners remember. A melody is a series of single tones that adds up to a recognizable whole. It begins, moves, and ends. It has direction, shape, and continuity. Many melodies are made out of shorter parts called phrases. The short units may have similar pitch and rhythm patterns that help unify the melody, or contrasting phrases which provide variety. The point of arrival or resting place at the end of a phrase is called the cadence. The melodic curve of line is the up and down movements of its pitches convey tension and release, expectation and arrival. The melody moves by small intervals called steps, or the larger ones called leaps. A step is the interval between adjacent tones, as in do, re, mi scale. Any interval larger than step is known as leap. Legato is how the tones of a melody is performed. Can vary its effects. Sometimes they are sung or played in a small, connected, or short, detached manner known as staccato. Now to our third element, harmony. Harmony refers to the way chords are constructed and how they follow each other. It is a simultaneous sounding of two or more tones. A chord is a combination of these or more tones sounded at once. Next is the consonance. It is the production of pleasant sounding chord, while dissonance is the sound of unpleasant chords. It is the effect of sounds that seem to repel each other and give the impression of two disparate and separate sounds unblendedly strung together.
Next is textile. The textile you hear in the music are determined by the number of layers and types of sounds that are present. For example, we have monophonic texture. It means one more sound or a single melodic line without accompaniment. If you listen to a piece of music and don't hear anything else beside the one tune, it's probably monophonic. The second texture is named polyphonic texture or contramental. It means two or more melodic lines compete for attention. This technique of combining several melodic lines is called counterpoint. And last, we have homophonic texture. Means one main melody accompanied by the chords as in a song or piece of classical music. We have the form. We perceive the overall form of a music by revealing the various parts and how they relate to each other. The form of music is the way that musical ideas are organized and presented through time. The form of a piece of music can be described as either simple or complex. With the simple forms, usually it is being short and repeating, while the complex forms usually contain more than one section.
Orchestra. An orchestra is a large ensemble of musicians who plays various musical instruments together to create a rich and harmonious sound. Typically, an orchestra includes four main sections of instruments. We have strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion. Orchestra are led by a conductor who coordinates and guides the musicians, interpreting the musical score and shaping the overall performance. Orchestra perform a wide range of classical contemporary music, including symphonies, concertos, overtures, and other compositions. They can vary in size, with some smaller chamber orchestras to large symphony orchestras comprising over 100 musicians. Symphony orchestra. A symphony orchestra is a big group of musicians that plays classical music. It has four main groups of instruments, like what I've said earlier. Uh, they have strings like violins, woodwinds like flutes and clarinets, brass like trumpets and trombones, and percussion like drums. The conductor leads the orchestra, guiding them to play in harmony. They perform in special concert halls and wear fancy clothes. Symphony orchestras play different kinds of classical music and sometimes other types too. Orchestra concerto. So a concerto is like a musical performance where one musician or a small group takes the spotlight and plays the main part, showing off their musical skills. They're like the star of the show. Behind them, there's a big group of musicians and called it orchestra, playing along to support and make this music richer. Concertos usually have three parts, each with a different mood. The fast, slow, and fast again. It's a way for musicians to shine and share their talent with the audience. That's all.
After figuring out what are the orchestra, the symphony orchestra, and concerto, next is the rondalla. The rondalla is an instrumental group played with string instruments. Mostly, yung mga instruments na ginagamit nila ay string instruments, gaya ng guitar, ukulele, etc. It originated in Spain, but since they colonized us, the Philippines, na-adapt na rin ito ng Philippines and became a tradition. And Ngayon, meron na tayong sariling rondalya. And it is Philippine rondalya. Philippine rondalya used native string instruments such as bandurria, loud, pancho, octavina, and etc. Since the word rondalla in Spanish means serenade, this ensemble is commonly seen when a guy courting a woman. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo nung panahon noon, kapag nanghaharana ang isang lalaki ay madalas gitara ang ginagamit nilang instruments. Rondalla is yung tawag sa group nila when they courting a woman. Moreover, the Philippines has its musical ensemble, the pangkat or branding kawayan, which is composed of instruments that come from bamboo. Next is mixed ensembles. Mixed ensembles is composed of variety of instruments and voices presented in a group. Kaya siya tinawag na mix kasi halo-halo yung makikita or maririnig mo doon sa isang group of musicians or sa mixed ensemble. Like yung instruments nila, hindi lang string instruments or percussion. It have different combinations, pati sa voices. At hindi lang isa yung voice classification nila. Pwedeng merong soprano, tenor, or falsetto. Like that. Mixed ensembles are commonly played in classical music. They have arrangements of most types of instruments such as strings, wind, brass, percussion, and voice elements. Gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina. One of a mixed ensemble or one example of a mixed ensemble is the orchestra. And that's all. The next is chamber orchestra, which will be presented by Ms. De La Cruz. Thank you.
Chamber orchestra. The chamber orchestra is applied to small instrumental ensembles in which there are only few performers for a part. So, an authentic performance of Baroque and early classical music, as well as modern works composed especially for small orchestra, can be found with the chamber orchestra. Ensembles of 25 musicians that frequently play string music in historically royal palace chambers. The violin, viola, cello, double bass, and classical guitar are examples of more conventional chamber music instruments. Chamber ensemble. The chamber ensemble is a medium with only a few performers with one performer to each part. So, a modest musical group performing chamber music. A duet, a trio, quartet, quintet, or any other size that is typically less than 10 players can be the number of players. So, a conductor is not used by most chamber music ensembles, with fewer musicians playing in small performance spaces that you might be accustomed to. Chamber music is a more personal experience. So next is solo sonatas. Is a music written for a solo instrument with an accompaniment. So solo sonatas is a composition of music with 3 or 4 parts that can be played on the piano, on or in another instrument like the violin, or occasionally both. String quartet is the most common medium of chamber music. It consists of 2 violins, viola, and a cello. So, 4 performers who perform on string instrument that may comprise a string quartet. So, the phrase can also be used to describe musical compositions meant for a string quartet, while any string instrument can be used in string quartet. So, the next is duos, trios, quintets, and other are music in which instruments have equal importance.
I'm Janet Asive and I'm going to tackle special ensembles and the conductor. Special ensembles. As music evolves, composers search for new medium. As a result of Filipinos' love for music, it paved the way for the development of a new kind of ensemble, the family ensemble. A musical ensemble, also known as a music group or musical group, is a group of people who perform instrumental or vocal music. With the ensemble typically known by a distinct name, some music ensembles consist solely of instrumentalists such as jazz, quartet, or the orchestra. Other music ensembles consist solely of singers such as choirs and duo groups. The conductor. The conductor is the director of the orchestra. The conductor is the leader of an orchestra or choir. They use specific gestures to direct individuals and sections of an orchestra or chorus through a piece of music and rehearsals and final performances. They instruct in aspects such as tempo, volume, tone, and pitch to achieve the desired performance of the piece.
So let's now move on to the Middle Age. So the Middle Age spans approximately 476 to 1450 AD, and it is generally considered to start around when the Roman Empire fell. So it started in Europe, where it was the Roman Catholic Church that held most of the power, and because of that, controlled much of music's development in the Middle Ages. So during the thousand years of Middle Ages, music notation developed from virtually nothing to a primitive form of our modern sheet music. And Middle Age music originally had no rhythmic structure, but as the music became more complex, a need for rhythmic unity emerged in this era. So with this complexity came rhythmic notation. So, in the early Middle Ages, music was monophonic, and which meaning a single voice or melody line. And as the time passed by, polyphony developed, or the multiple melodies. So, in this era, polyphony is really interesting and led to the highly complex polyphony of the Renaissance. So music at the Middle Age was modal, or meaning it wasn't based in any key. So there wasn't any concept of key signature until around the Baroque period. So let's now move to the second period, which is the Renaissance era. So the Renaissance period of classical music spans approximately 1400s to 1600s, and it was preceded by the medieval period and followed by the Baroque period. So the Renaissance era of music history came significantly later than the era of Renaissance art, which arguably peaked during the 14th and 15th centuries. So the Renaissance era of classical music rather, so the polyphonic music, the rise of new instruments, and the birth of new ideas regarding the harmony, rhythmic, and music notation. So, so the Renaissance period also gave birth to musical forms like the motet, the madrigal spirituals, the mass, etc. So secular music also had a place in the Renaissance era. Such forms included the secular motet, the motet chanson, the secular madrigal, the violonchico, the frottola, the rondo, the ballad, the lute song, and the canzonet. So composers in Renaissance era had more freedom to write as they pleased, and technological developments meant that their music could reach more people. And also religious choral music was dominant at the beginning of the Renaissance period. So with much of it building upon the polyphony, or the music which has two or more simultaneous independent melodic parts that developed at the end of the medieval period. So the last one is the Baroque period. So the Baroque period was a revolutionary time in music history that saw a full embrace of polyphony,
ornamentation, and harmonic sophistication. So the Baroque period of music occurred from roughly 1600s to 1750. So the Baroque style spread through Europe over the course of the 17th century with notable Baroque composers emerging in Germany, Italy, France, and England. So the Baroque era was not limited to music. Baroque painting by masters like Caravaggio and Peter Paul Rubens, Baroque sculpture that led by Gian Bernini, and Baroque architecture, particularly in the Catholic Church, were other celebrated forms of Baroque art in 17th and 18th centuries. So also, the term Baroque can refer to all of these art forms in addition, especially to music. So the popular Baroque musical forms include the prelude, the fugue, the cantata, the concerto, the oratorio, the sonata, and even the famous opera. So, like prior to Renaissance composition, many Baroque pieces have religious themes, and Baroque composers were aligned with both the Catholic Church and following the 16th century Protestant Reformation, other denominations like Lutheranism.
History of music. In the classical period was an era of classical music between roughly 1750 and 1820. A young Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a representative composer of the classical period, seated at a keyboard. The classical period falls between the Baroque and the Romantic periods. The classical era in music is compositionally defined by the balanced eclecticism of the late 18th and early 19th century Viennese school of Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and Schubert, who completely absorbed and individually focused fused or transformed the vast array of the 18th century textures and formal types. Expansion of the tripartite Italian overture had produced the basic three-movement scheme of the symphony even before the 18th century reached midpoint. Shortly thereafter, the minute, borrowed from the dance suite, was inserted with increasing frequency as a fourth movement between the slow movement and the fast finale. The French opera overture in the third length, its slow introduction, were needed for structural variety. Texturally, homophony and polyphony soon assumed rather specific rules, with polyphonic writing usually reserved for the central or developmental section of the classical first movement form. In the Romantic era naman po, the Romantic period started around 1830 and ended around 90s. As composition became increasingly expressive and inventive, expansive symphonies were virtuosic piano music and dramatic operas and uh, passionate songs took inspiration from art and literature. Romantic music is a stylistic movement in Western classical music associated with the period of the 19th century commonly referred to as the Romantic era. It is closely related to the broader concept of Romanticism, the intellectual, artistic, and literary movement that became prominent in Western culture from approximately uh, 1798 until 1837. Thank you.
Program music. The program music is connected with elements of the story or a poem. It is an instrumental music that aims to depict or tell a story, convey an idea, or illustrate non-musical concepts such as narrative, image, or emotion. One famous example of program music is Symphony Fantastique by Hector Berlioz, which vividly tells a story through its movements, portraying the artist's obsessive love and despair. The program music is generally classified into three. The first one is imitative music. Imitative music copies the actual sound of the sound. It involves musical material that is repeated or echoed by different instruments or voices, imitating or echoing each other's phrases or themes. An example of imitative music can be found in Johann Sebastian Bach's The Brandenburg Concerto No. 3, where different instruments echo and imitate each other's musical themes throughout the piece. The second one is descriptive program. Music pictures an event or scenes. Descriptive music vividly portrays or represents specific scenes, emotions, characters, or events without following a specific narrative. It aims to paint a sonic picture or evoke imagery through sound. An example of descriptive music is The Planets by Gustav Holst, where each movement represents a different planet and its astrological character, evoking vivid images and moods associated with each celestial body. The third one is narrative music, intends to tell a story. It is a form of musical storytelling that follows a specific storyline, often portraying a sequence or events or conveying a clear plot through its composition. Folk music. The folk music is the traditional and spontaneous music of people, race, nation, or a region. It is passed down orally from one generation to another. The folk music is a genre that encompasses traditional music created by and for a community, often passed down orally through generations. It reflects the cultural heritage, customs, and stories of a particular group or region. An example of folk music is from the Philippines called Bahay Kubo, a traditional song that celebrates rural life and describes a typical Filipino rural house surrounded by various plants and vegetables.
So now we have the art song. Art song is usually composed with a piano accompaniment and is often sophisticated. Unlike folk songs, an art song is the work of a composer who is trained in music. The music each composer sings fits the world he chooses, which usually are from a poem written by somebody else but nevertheless characterizes himself. The poetic structure of an art song determines its musical form. Folk songs and art songs differ from each other in dynamics, general expression, and tempo. Moving on to the jazz music. Melody and rhythm blend harmonically in jazz music. Syncopation and rhythmic background are strong, which began in the United States in 1900s, played by the Negroes who were brought from Africa to America as slaves. So jazz has things in common with African music, especially the strong use of rhythm. Much of jazz music is improvised, that is, by playing musicians. It is not written down like classical music. Much was borrowed by jazz music from work songs and songs with sad words or quote unquote blues. And the instruments use tones and inflections that imitate human voice. The traditional jazz was played in 1910. A traditional jazz band includes trumpet, clarinet, and trombone, and a double bass, drums, and banjo. So, modern jazz, on the other hand, was developed in 1940, and many use trumpets, piano, saxophone, double bass, drums, and um, musicians that take solos. So, jazz has strong influence on modern classical music, popular songs, and modern dance music.
Hi guys, so today I'm gonna be talking about classical music and opera music. So, what is classical music? Classical music is understood as any composition that emerged during classicism, which includes the years 750 to 1830. So, what do we have to know about classical music? Classical music is a genre written in Europe that is characterized by its elegance, balance, and homophonic textures. It includes several forms like sonatas, symphonies, and opera. So ano nga ba yung sonata? So ang ibig sabihin ng sonata is piece of instrumental music. Um, ano naman yung symphony? So symphony is an orchestra's large-scale musical composition usually requiring 50 to 80 instruments. So yung symphony is yan yung nakikita natin sa theater na nire-enact ng maraming tao para makapaghatid ng music. Diyan natin makikita yung may mga conductors and musicians. So isang example ng genre ng classical music is yung etude. So it is an instrumental musical composition, usually short, designed to provide practice material for perfecting a particular music skill. So yung etude, um, ginagamit siyang practice tool ng mga students na gustong matuto ng music. So examples niyan is yung mga students na gustong matuto ng music. So kailangan nila mag-perform ng etude. Like sa mga students sa UP, yung mga gusto mag-pursue ng music. So kailangan nilang matutunan 'yon para 'yun yung i-perform nila sa sa recitals nila para pumasa sila sa kanilang gustong marating. So, ayun. So, yung etude is the ability to play rapid and controlled octave passages in the right hand. So, yun yung pinaka-skill nung etude. Kailangan mabilis kang mag-play ng piano using the right hand. So, yung classical music ba is important pa rin. So, this genre sounds pleasing to the ear, which in turn improves cognition in the brain. When something sounds nice, it increases dopamine and neurocognition. With these two factors working in tandem, an aging brain stays active and healthy. Yan. So, what is opera? Opera is a form of theater in which music is a fundamental component and dramatic roles are taken by singers. Such a work is typically a collaboration between a composer and a librettist and incorporates a number of the performing arts such as acting, scenery, costume, and sometimes dance or ballet. So, what do we have to know about opera? So, opera, it is an art form that tells a story through music and singing. Unlike a musical, opera singers do not use microphones to amplify their voices, and the music played by the orchestra is completely live. So, ano ba yung mga examples ng opera? So, andyan yung Phantom of the Opera at saka yung Miss Saigon. So, ayun yung mga examples ng opera na piniplay sa theater. So, sa performing arts, ano ba yung role ng mga tao para makabuo ng isang opera? So, syempre, andyan yung, of course, yung director, yung actor, stage manager, floor manager, set designer, lighting technician, production crew, sound technician, dancers, screenwriter, and of course, yung pinaka-importante, yung live band or yung orchestra. Kasi super laking role nung live band kasi pag wala yung live band, magtutunog a cappella yung play nila. So, ano pa bang point ng ginagawa ng mga tao kung bakit sila nag-o-opera, kung bakit sila gumagawa ng theater play? So, ginagawa nila ito para makapag-entertain, makapag-tell ng story, and higit sa lahat para mapakita nila na buhay ang art sa performing arts. Thank you.